The luminous harmony floated like a broken toy in the darkness of space. The beautiful science vessel that had once gleamed with pride now looked like something a child had smashed against a wall. Its crystalline hull, which used to shine like a diamond, was cracked open in a dozen places. Chunks of the ship drifted nearby, spinning slowly in the endless black. Inside what remained of the vessel, Chief Navigator Velther's 3 fingers trembled as they worked the communication panel. The thin, gray-skinned alien was usually calm and methodical, but not today. Today, fear made every movement jerky and desperate. Sweat that looked like clear oil beaded on Velther's smooth forehead. The asteroid had come out of nowhere. One moment they were conducting routine stellar measurements. The next, alarm screamed as a rock the size of a building tore through their ship like paper. The impact had been catastrophic. 17 crew members were simply gone, sucked into space before the emergency bulkheads could seal. The rest huddled in 3 separate compartments, watching their oxygen levels drop with each passing hour. Velther punched buttons on the console, sending out distress calls on every frequency loaded into the system. Standard channels, emergency channels, ancient frequencies that hadn't been used in generations. The alien didn't care anymore. Anyone had to hear them. The database said frequency 7 prime was restricted, marked with red warnings. But there wasn't time to read warnings. There wasn't time for anything except calling for help and hoping. Down in the lower deck, Medical Officer Thren tried to keep the injured comfortable. The medics for arms moved between crew members, administering what little medicine remained. But medicine couldn't fix the real problem. The life support systems were failing. The ship's main reactor was offline. Backup power was draining fast. Even if rescue came immediately, they had maybe 3 days of breathable air left in these sealed sections. The nearest cooperative rescue station was 6 cycles away. In human terms, that would be roughly 6 days of travel at standard speeds. Everyone aboard did the math. They would suffocate long before help arrived. Some crew members had already accepted their fate. They sat quietly, holding hands with their companions, preparing for the end. Then Velther's console beeped. A response. Someone had actually answered the distress call. The navigator's heart surged with hope. They checked the signal source, expecting to see coordinates from a nearby merchant vessel or perhaps a patrol ship that happened to be close. Instead, the screen showed something impossible. The responding ship was impossibly far away, yet claimed an arrival time of just 16 hours. That couldn't be right. No cooperative vessel could move that fast. No known species had engines capable of such acceleration. Velther ran the calculations 3 times, certain there must be an error. Meanwhile, halfway across known space, the UNSC Indomitable was already moving. The massive human vessel looked nothing like the elegant ships favored by the Galactic Cooperative. Where alien ships were smooth curves and artistic designs, the Indomitable was all brutal angles and thick armor plating. It looked less like a rescue ship and more like something built to ram through planets. Captain Rachel Brooks stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes focused on the star chart displayed before her. She was a tall woman with short brown hair going gray at the temples. Her uniform was crisp and professional, but her hands were calloused from years of field work before making captain. She hadn't always sat in the command chair. She'd earned her way up on the engineering deck, learning every system on every ship she'd served on. "Distance to target?" she asked. "For light years, give or take," replied Lieutenant Timothy Webb from the tactical station. He was younger than the captain, with red hair and the kind of pale skin that burned easily under any sun. His fingers danced across his controls, pulling up more data. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies, standard distress protocols. Except for that one channel, added communications Officer Diana Foster. She was a dark-skinned woman with keen eyes that missed nothing. They activated frequency 7 prime. That's the restricted channel, the one we're not supposed to exist on. Rachel felt a familiar weight settle in her chest. The galaxy had quarantined humanity decades ago, declaring Earth a death world and its inhabitants too dangerous for general contact. Humans have been confined to their own small sector of space, forbidden from joining the Galactic Cooperative. It was supposed to be for everyone's safety. But humans had never been good at following rules that didn't make sense. They'd built ships anyway, explored anyway, and when distress calls came from the dark places of space where no one else dared to go, humans answered. Always. How long until we reach them? Rachel asked. 16 hours at maximum burn, said Lieutenant Kevin Hayes from Engineering. He was a stocky man with thick arms and grease permanently under his fingernails. The crew won't like it. That's a lot of G-forces, even with the dampeners. They'll handle it, Rachel said. Spin up the drives. We're going in hot. The Indomitable surged forward, its massive engines burning brighter than stars. Inside, the crew felt the pressure as acceleration pushed them back into their seats. It was uncomfortable, even painful. But every person aboard had volunteered for this duty. They knew what they signed up for. Back on the dying alien vessel, Velther stared at the computer screen in growing horror. The ship's ancient database had finally processed the responding vessel's signature. Frequency 7 Prime wasn't just restricted. It was the quarantine channel, the emergency frequency that connected to the prohibited zone, to the death world, to Earth. The database entry filled the screen with warnings written in a dozen languages. Humanity was classified as a Class 12 Death World species. Contact was forbidden. They were considered unpredictable, violent, and fundamentally incompatible with civilized spacefaring species. Velther's hands shook. They had called for rescue and summoned monsters instead. The crew was doomed either way. They could die slowly from lack of oxygen, or they could wait for the humans to arrive and probably kill them all. The navigator looked at the timer, counting down. 16 hours until the humans arrived. 3 days until the air ran out. Velther didn't know which fate was worse, but there was no choice now. The call had been sent. The monsters were coming. All they could do was wait and pray to whatever gods might listen that death would at least be quick. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel with all the subtlety of an earthquake. The alien crew aboard the Luminous Harmony felt it before they saw it. Their damaged ship shuddered and groaned as the massive human vessel's engine washed at them like a physical wave. Warning alarms that had been silent suddenly screamed to life. Loose debris rattled against bulkheads. Velther rushed to the sensor display, their thin fingers trembling as they pulled up the readings. What appeared on screen made their blood run cold. The human ship was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the Luminous Harmony even when it had been intact. But size wasn't what terrified Velther. It was everything else. The hull was covered in thick armor plating that looked like it could shrug off direct hits from plasma cannons. Strange protrusions jutted from every surface, and the ship's computer was frantically trying to identify them all. Weapon systems. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. Missile tubes, railgun batteries, energy weapon arrays, and things the database couldn't even categorize. Captain, Velther's assistant whispered, his voice barely audible. The young crew member pointed at one particular reading with a shaking hand. Those are antimatter warheads. That ship is carrying enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. Why would a rescue vessel need that? Nobody had an answer. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the human ship maneuvered closer. It moved with surprising grace for something so massive, adjusting its position with careful precision. But there was nothing gentle about what came next. The docking procedure was unlike anything in galactic cooperative protocols. There were no careful magnetic alignments, no slow and steady approach. Instead, explosive bolts fired with sharp cracks that echoed through the damaged hull. The aliens felt each detonation in their bones. Then came the clamps. Massive magnetic locks engaged with such force that the entire remaining structure of the Luminous Harmony shook violently. 3 crew members near the docking port collapsed immediately, their sensitive inner ears overwhelmed by the vibrations. Others grabbed onto whatever they could find, trying not to fall. One young technician vomited from the motion sickness. Medical Officer Thren rushed to help the fallen crew members, all 4 arms working to stabilize them. Then the airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. What stepped through made every alien present take an instinctive step backward. The human was massive, at least by alien standards. Chief Warrant Officer Emily Carter stood nearly 6 feet tall, and her environmental suit added several more inches. She towered over the largest of the alien crew members. The suit itself looked more like battle armor than safety equipment, with reinforced plating and attachment points for equipment that could have been weapons or tools. It was impossible to tell the difference. For a long moment, there was just silence. The aliens stared at the armored figure. Some were frozen in fear. Others calculated how quickly they could run. Then the helmet retracted with a soft mechanical whir, and a human face appeared. Emily Carter had warm brown eyes and a friendly smile that showed white teeth. Laugh lines creased the corners of her eyes. She looked at the terrified aliens, and her smile grew even warmer. "Hey there," she said, her voice passing through the translator device on her suit. "Rough day, huh? Don't worry, we've got you." The disconnect was jarring. The words were kind, reassuring even, but she was carrying enough equipment on her suit to outfit a small military unit. Cutting torches, welding tools, emergency patches, medical supplies, and yes, what were definitely weapons? A plasma cutter hung from one hip. A pressurized nail gun that could punch through bulkheads was strapped to her thigh. Emily didn't wait for a response. She moved into the ship with confident, purposeful strides. Her boots clanged against the metal deck with each step. She pulled out a handheld scanner and swept it across the walls, reading structural integrity, checking for hidden damage, assessing what could be saved and what was beyond help. "Bobby, Jake, get in here," she called over her shoulder. "We've got multiple hull breaches on the starboard side. Bring the heavy sealant and the emergency bulkhead kits." 2 more humans entered. They moved with the same casual confidence, as if walking onto a dying ship in the middle of nowhere was just another day at work. And Velther realized with growing horror that for these people, it probably was. Emily approached one of the breach sections, a gaping hole where the asteroid had torn through. Beyond it was open space, the infinite void, absolute vacuum that would kill any of the alien crew members in seconds. She walked right up to the edge, her boots magnetic locking to the deck, and leaned out to examine the damage. She wasn't wearing her helmet. Her face was exposed to space. Velther wanted to scream a warning, but the sound caught in their throat. They watched in disbelief as Emily calmly pulled out a torch and began cutting away twisted metal, humming what sounded like a song while she worked. The vacuum didn't touch her. Her suit's force field created a bubble of pressure around her head, so subtle it was almost invisible. "Not as bad as it looks," Emily called back cheerfully. "We can patch this in about 20 minutes. You folks just sit tight." Lieutenant Commander Jake Richardson arrived with his engineering team. The man was built like a tank, with broad shoulders and arms that looked like they could bend steel. His graying hair was cut military short, and his weathered face suggested he'd seen just about everything the universe could throw at him and wasn't impressed. "All right, people, let's get to work," he said. His team spread out through the ship, moving into areas the alien crew hadn't dared approach. Sections that were flooded with radiation from the damaged reactor. Compartments where the hull had buckled and could collapse at any moment. Places where electrical fires still smoldered. The humans walked into all of it without hesitation. Velther watched one engineer casually lift a piece of debris that had to weigh several hundred pounds in Earth gravity. The man tossed it aside like it was made of foam, then crawled into the space beneath to check the power conduits. Another human was working in a section where the radiation counter was screaming warnings, levels that would give any cooperative species fatal poisoning within minutes. The human barely glanced at the readings. He pulled out tools and started repairing damaged systems, whistling while he worked. Medical Officer Thran approached Emily cautiously. The alien medic's translator struggled with the question, "How are you doing this?" The radiation alone should be lethal. The vacuum exposure, the heavy gravity stress on your body, the toxic compounds in our ship's air mixture. Emily looked up from her work and shrugged. "Earth's a tough place. You kind of have to be built sturdy to make it there." She grinned. "Plus we got good medical tech. Radiation scrubbers in our suits, genetic modifications for environmental resistance, that kind of thing. We're hard to kill." She said it like it was the most normal thing in the universe. Like everyone evolved on worlds where you needed genetic engineering just to survive your own planet. One of the human engineers pulled out a ration pack and tore it open. He offered some to a curious alien crew member. The alien scanner immediately flashed red warnings. The food contained capsaicin levels that would be lethal to most species, salt concentrations that could cause organ failure, proteins that were borderline toxic. The human just laughed and took a big bite. Yeah, we like our food spicy. Builds character. Velther stood in the middle of the chaos, watching humans work with casual efficiency in conditions that should have killed him a dozen times over, and finally understood the terrible truth. Earth wasn't just listed as a death world because it was dangerous. It was a death world because it had forged its inhabitants into something fundamentally different. These weren't brave people performing heroic acts. This was just Tuesday for humans. This was normal. Captain Rachel Brooks stood in the center of the Luminous Harmony's main bridge, her experienced eyes scanning the damage reports on her handheld tablet. She'd seen a lot of wrecks in her 15 years of deep space rescue work, but this one was bad, really bad. The ship's structural integrity was at 23%. The main reactor was completely offline. Life support was running on battery backup that would last maybe another 40 hours at best. She looked up at Captain Shelvith, the commander of the alien vessel. The insectoid creature stood on four spindly legs, his compound eyes reflecting a dozen tiny images of Rachel's face. His translator collar clicked and whirred as he waited for her assessment. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this," Rachel said, her voice calm but serious. "Your ship is done. We can patch the holes and stop the immediate bleeding, but she's never going to fly under her own power again. The structural damage is too severe. If we try to move her conventionally, she'll break apart." Shelvith's antennae drooped. He'd known this was coming, but hearing it out loud made it real. "What do you suggest?" "We evacuate your entire crew to the Indomitable. Everyone. No exceptions. Then we attach tow cables and drag what's left of your ship to the nearest safe port." Rachel paused, knowing what she had to say next wouldn't go over well. "That port is in human space. Station Armstrong, Earth orbit. It's the closest facility with the equipment to handle a salvage operation of this size." The alien captain's whole body went rigid. His translator struggled to convey his distress. "But the quarantine protocols, the laws are very clear. Non-death world species are forbidden from entering human territory. The penalties for violation are severe. We could face imprisonment, permanent travel bans. Our entire crew could be blacklisted from cooperative service." Rachel held up a hand, cutting off the growing panic in Shelvith's voice. "I understand your concerns. I really do, but let's be practical here. Your nearest cooperative station is 6 days away at standard travel speeds. You got maybe 40 hours of air left, and that's if nothing else breaks. The math doesn't work in your favor." She pulled up a star chart on her tablet and showed it to him. "Look, here's where we are. Here's the nearest cooperative station. Here's Earth. We can have you at Armstrong in 3 days. We can keep you alive in 3 days. The other option—" She let the sentence hang in the air, unfinished but clear. Shelvith looked at his crew scattered around the bridge. Young faces, old faces, people with families waiting for them back home. He looked back at Rachel and slowly nodded. "We accept your help, Captain Brooks, though I fear the legal consequences will be severe. We'll deal with that when we get there," Rachel said. "Right now, let's focus on keeping everyone breathing. Lieutenant Richardson, start coordinating the evacuation. I want everyone off the ship and into our habitation modules within 2 hours." That's when the sensors started screaming. Lieutenant Timothy Webb spun in his chair at the tactical station, his face going pale as he read the displays. "Captain, we got incoming signatures. 5 vessels dropping out of hyperspace. Military-grade engines. Weapon systems active." Rachel's jaw tightened. She knew what this was before the identification came through. Pirates. Confirmed. Creche Dominion markings. Scavenger fleet configuration. Timothy's fingers flew across his controls, pulling up more data. They're taking up surrounding positions. We're boxed in. The Creche Dominion was infamous throughout this sector. Not exactly an organized government, more like a loose confederation of pirate clans who preyed on disabled vessels. They'd show up at disaster sites, claim salvage rights, and kill anyone who argued. The Galactic Cooperative had lodged formal complaints dozens of times, but the creche operated in the lawless regions between civilized space. Nobody could touch them. The communication channel crackled to life. A gravelly voice filled with smug confidence came through. "Human vessel, this is Captain Drex of the Creche Salvage Fleet. You are in violation of our claimed territory. The wreck you are attached to is now property of the Dominion. Detach your lines and withdraw immediately." Rachel walked calmly to the communication station. She caught the eye of Lieutenant Diana Foster, who was already recording everything. Good. Documentation was important. She pressed the transmit button. "Negative, Drex. This is Captain Rachel Brooks of the United Nations Space Command vessel Indomitable. We are conducting an active rescue operation with survivors aboard the damaged vessel. This is not salvage. This is search and rescue. You have no legal claim here." There was a pause. Then Drex laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Deathworlder, you misunderstand your position. We are 5 ships. You are 1. We claim this salvage by right of superior force. You have 2 minutes to detach and leave, or we will destroy you and take what we want from your wreckage as well." On the bridge of the Indomitable, the atmosphere changed instantly. Rachel saw it happen in her crew's faces. The casual professionalism shifted into something harder, colder. Her tactical officer's hands moved to weapon controls. Her helm officer adjusted their positions slightly, calculating firing solutions without being asked. Her crew had been friendly and warm while rescuing aliens. Now, they were something else entirely. Rachel kept her voice perfectly calm. "Drex, you're making a serious mistake. This is your only warning. We are conducting a lawful rescue operation. You have 30 seconds to withdraw before we classify you as hostile obstacles interfering with a rescue mission. Under UNSC regulations, we are authorized to use lethal force to protect survivors in our care. 30 seconds. Drex laughed again. "You're outnumbered 5-1 human. Your threats are—" 20 seconds, Rachel interrupted, her voice dropping to ice. Aboard the luminous Harmony, Velther and the alien crew watched their sensors in horror. The human ship was lighting up like a star-going supernova. Every weapon system was coming online simultaneously. Energy readings were spiking off the charts. The aliens had thought those weapons were for show, for intimidation. They were very, very wrong. 10 seconds, Rachel said. The creche captain transmission cut off mid-laugh, replaced by weapons fire. 5 pirate ships opened up at once, launching missiles and plasma bolts at the Indomitable. It was a devastating barrage that should have crippled any vessel. It didn't even scratch the paint. The Indomitable's point defense systems came alive like an angry swarm. Dozens of small railguns tracked incoming missiles with computer precision. They fired in rapid succession, tiny tungsten slugs moving at incredible velocity. Every single missile exploded before reaching the hull. Plasma bolts splashed harmlessly against energy shields that flared bright blue and held firm. Then the Indomitable returned fire. The main railgun battery spoke with voices like thunder. Massive rounds, each one weighing several tons, accelerated down electromagnetic rails at a significant fraction of light speed. The first round hit a creche cruiser dead center. It punched through the bow armor, traveled the entire length of the ship, and exited through the engines. The pirate vessel split in two, atmosphere venting in explosive clouds. The second creche ship tried to evade, but human targeting computers didn't miss. Another railgun round caught it in the port side. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased being a ship and became a rapidly expanding cloud of debris. The engagement lasted 90 seconds from first shot to last. 3 pirate vessels were disabled, their engines destroyed, their weapon systems offline, drifting helplessly. 2 others managed to jump to hyperspace, fleeing at maximum acceleration with their shields overloaded and smoking. Silence filled the channel. Then Rachel spoke again, her voice returning to that same calm, almost gentle tone she'd used before. "Lieutenant Webb, dispatch rescue teams to the disabled vessels. Standard protocols. Medical teams on standby. Velther couldn't process what they'd just heard. Their translator had to repeat it twice before the words made sense. Captain Brooks, the alien said slowly, did you just order rescue operations for the pirates? The ones who just tried to kill us. Rachel turned to look at Velther. Her face was tired but determined. They're disabled and drifting. Their life support is probably damaged. If we leave them here, they'll die. Slowly, painfully. She shook her head. I don't care what they tried to do. We don't let people die in space if we can prevent it. That's not who we are. That's not what humans do. Lieutenant Diana Foster, standing at the communication station, added quietly, we make the rules out here in the dark places. And rule number 1 is simple. Nobody dies alone in the black, if we can help it. Not friends. Not strangers. Not even enemies. Velther watched through the viewports as human rescue shuttles launched toward the crippled pirate vessels. The same people who just destroyed 3 ships in combat were now risking their lives to save the crews. The same species that could be terrifyingly violent was now offering mercy to those who'd shown them none. And Velther finally understood. Humans didn't just survive their deadly world. They'd created a code of honor forged in that survival. They'd made rules for hell itself, and they followed those rules no matter what, even when it would be easier not to, even when their enemies didn't deserve it. Especially then, the journey to human space should have felt like a death sentence. Instead, Velther found themselves living in unexpected comfort. The humans had constructed entire habitat modules aboard the Indomitable specifically designed for alien physiology. The atmospheric mix was perfect, calibrated to exact specifications for each species aboard. The pressure was adjusted to comfortable levels. Even the lighting had been modified to wavelengths that didn't hurt their sensitive eyes. Velther stood in their assigned quarters, a small but well-designed space with sleeping alcoves and workstations. Everything they needed was here. They should have felt safe, protected. Instead, curiosity gnawed at them. What were the humans living in? How different were their conditions? On the second day of travel, Velther decided to find out. The human sections weren't restricted. Captain Brooks had made that clear. Any alien who wanted to explore was welcome, though she'd warned them it might be uncomfortable. Velther gathered their recording equipment and ventured out, determined to document everything for the scientific community back home. The transition was immediate and shocking. The moment Velther passed through the connecting airlock into the human habitat ring, gravity increased dramatically. It felt like someone had strapped weights to every part of their body. Their legs trembled with the effort of just standing. The atmospheric pressure was higher too, pressing against their chest. And the air itself tasted strange, rich with oxygen at levels that made them slightly lightheaded. A human crew member jogged past, moving easily despite carrying what looked like 50 pounds of equipment. She smiled and waved as she passed, not even breathing hard. Velther tried to wave back and nearly fell over from the effort in the heavy gravity. They made their way slowly down a corridor, using the handrails for support. Through an observation window, Velther saw something that defied belief. A gymnasium. At least 20 humans were inside, and what they were doing looked like torture. One woman was running on a machine, her feet pounding rhythmically for minutes on end without stopping. Her face was covered in sweat, but she was smiling, listening to something through earbuds. Another man was lifting metal bars loaded with circular weights. He strained and groaned as he pushed the bar above his head, muscles bulging. Then he lowered it and immediately did it again. And again, dozens of times. A group was doing something called circuit training, according to the sign on the wall. They jumped, climbed, lifted, and pushed themselves through obstacle courses that looked designed to break bones. And they were laughing, actually enjoying it. Velther checked their scanner. The gravity in that room was Earth standard, 1.0 G. That was twice what most cooperative species considered comfortable. These humans were voluntarily exercising in conditions that would exhaust Velther just from standing still. The cafeteria was the next stop, and it assaulted Velther's senses immediately. Smells, strong and overwhelming. Humans sat at tables eating meals that made the scanner in Velther's hand flash warning after warning. One young man was eating something called chili. The capsaicin levels were literally off the scale. That dish would cause chemical burns in Velther's mouth. The human just spooned it in and smiled. Another table had open bottles of something called beer. Ethanol, a poison. These humans were casually drinking poison with their meals and calling it relaxation. One woman laughed at something her companion said, then took a long drink from her bottle like it was water. Velther watched the group sharing something called buffalo wings. The scanner identified the sauce as containing compounds derived from one of Earth's most aggressive predator plants. Eating it should have required medical supervision. Instead, humans were eating it as a casual snack, arguing good-naturedly about whether the medium-spice version was too mild. Dr. Lisa Morgan found Velther standing in the cafeteria doorway, looking stunned. The human doctor was in her early 40s, with tired eyes that had seen too much but still held warmth. She smiled when she saw the alien's expression. "Culture shock?" she asked kindly. "I don't understand," Velther said, gesturing at the cafeteria. "Your food is toxic, literally toxic. Why do you eat poison?" Lisa laughed and guided Velther to a quieter corner. "It's not poison to us. Well, technically some of it is, but our bodies can handle it. Earth was a tough place to grow up. Really tough. Everything there was trying to kill us. The plants, the animals, the weather, even the ground itself with earthquakes and volcanoes." She pulled up an image on her tablet. Earth, that blue and white marble Velther had seen in the database. We evolved to handle stress. Physical stress, chemical stress, environmental stress. Our bodies got really good at filtering out toxins, repairing damage, adapting to new conditions. What kills you just makes us uncomfortable. What makes you uncomfortable we barely notice. Velther pulled out their own tablet and, with Lisa's permission, accessed Earth's entry in the Galactic database. Class 12 Deathworld, the highest danger classification. The description read like a horror story. Extreme temperature variations that could swing from deadly cold to lethal heat. Massive storms with wind speeds that could tear apart buildings. Tectonic plates that shifted without warning, causing earthquakes and tsunamis. Volcanic eruptions that could darken the sky for months. The predators list was even worse. Creatures with venom that could kill in minutes. Parasites that invaded the body and controlled the host behavior. Bacteria and viruses that mutated constantly, requiring immune systems to be in perpetual war mode. Plants that could cause chemical burns, paralysis, or death just from touching them. How did anything survive there? Velther whispered. "By being tougher than everything else," Lisa said simply. "And humans? We're persistence hunters. We might not be the fastest or the strongest, but we don't stop. Ever. We chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We survive injuries that would kill other species. We adapt to environments that should be impossible. It's what we do." Over the next 2 days, Velther witnessed this truth repeatedly. They watched humans in the recreation room playing something called first-person shooters. Simulated combat scenarios where they practice killing each other with disturbing efficiency. One game involved surviving against endless waves of monsters in horror scenarios. The humans laughed and competed to see who could last longest. They watched movies in the ship's theater. Horror films where humans were hunted by unstoppable killers, invaded by parasitic aliens, or trapped in impossible situations. The humans watched these scenarios that should have caused trauma and called it entertainment. They ate popcorn and made jokes while characters died horrible deaths on screen. Commander Jake Mitchell, one of the engineering chiefs, invited a group of aliens to play poker in the crew lounge one evening. The card game seemed simple enough, but the psychology behind it was fascinating. Humans were natural-born liars, able to hide their emotions behind carefully controlled expressions. They called it a poker face. They bet and bluffed and read each other's subtle tells with practiced ease. Lieutenant Timothy Webb shared human music with some of the younger alien crew members. The volume alone was overwhelming. The bass frequencies vibrated in Velther's chest. The rhythms were primal, driving, passionate. Some of it was beautiful. Some of it was just noise and screaming. But all of it had an energy that was undeniably alive. The aliens tried to share their own music in return, mathematical harmonies and precise tonal arrangements. The humans listened politely and said it was interesting, but Velther could tell they found it too calm, too organized, too safe. Cultural exchange happened in both directions. The aliens taught mathematics and showed their art, delicate sculptures, and paintings of ideal worlds. They shared philosophy about peace, order, and the pursuit of harmony with the universe. The humans listened and learned and seemed genuinely interested. On the third day, as they approached human space, Velther stood at an observation port looking out at the stars. What they saw there changed everything. The Indomitable wasn't alone. Dozens of ships were visible on long-range sensors. Massive vessels like the one they were on. Smaller, faster patrol craft. Medical ships with red crosses painted on their hulls. Supply vessels. Construction platforms. An entire fleet spread out across this sector space. Captain Brooks came to stand beside Velther. "Welcome to Outer Perimeter Station coverage," she said quietly. "This whole region is considered too dangerous for regular cooperative patrols. Rogue asteroids, gravitational anomalies, pyractivity, uncharted spatial phenomena. So we patrol instead." "Why?" Velther asked. "Your government quarantined you. The cooperative wants nothing to do with Earth. Why do you risk your lives protecting space that isn't even yours?" Rachel was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. "Because someone has to. Because ships like yours break down out here. Because people get lost, stranded, hurt. Because the dangerous places in the galaxy don't stop being dangerous just because everyone else ignores them." She turned to look at Velther. "We survived Earth. We know what it means to live in a hostile environment. So we decided to make the hostile places a little less hostile for everyone else." Velther looked at the fleet spread across the darkness and finally understood. Humanity hadn't just survived their death world. They'd taken the lessons learned from that brutal survival and decided to be the ones who answered when others called for help in the dark. They'd made the galaxy's most dangerous corners their responsibility, not because anyone asked them to, but because it was the right thing to do. Orbital Station Armstrong appeared on the view screens like something out of a dream. The massive station rotated slowly in high Earth orbit, its ring structure gleaming with thousands of lights. Solar panels stretched out like wings, and docking ports jutted from the central hub like spokes on a wheel. It was beautiful, functional, and clearly built by people who expected things to go wrong and had backup plans for their backup plans. But Velther barely glanced at the station. Their eyes were locked on the planet below. Earth. The death world hung in space like a blue and white marble streaked with brown and green. From orbit, it looked peaceful, even inviting. But Velther had read the database entries. They knew what those white swirls represented. Massive hurricane systems with wind speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. Storms that could level entire cities. And those were just the normal ones. The brown and tan patches were deserts where temperatures could kill from heat exposure in hours. The green sections were jungles and forests filled with plants and animals that had evolved to survive by being more lethal than their competition. And beneath it all, the planet's crust was broken into plates that ground against each other constantly, building mountains and triggering earthquakes. "It's beautiful," whispered Thren, the medical officer, standing beside Velther at the observation port. "It's terrifying," Velther corrected. "Look at those storm systems. That one over the ocean is larger than our entire home continent, and it's just sitting there, spinning. How do they live down there?" A human technician passing by overheard and laughed. "Oh, that's just a Category 3 hurricane. Nothing too serious. They'll evacuate the coastal areas and wait it out. Should blow over in a few days." The casual dismissal of a storm system that could destroy their entire civilization made Velther's head spin. Nothing too serious. These people were insane. Beautifully, admirably insane. The Indomitable docked smoothly with Station Armstrong, and the crew began disembarking. But something was wrong. Velther could feel it in the air, see it in the tense faces of the human crew. At the main airlock, a delegation was waiting. Not a welcome committee. A diplomatic incident. Ambassador Krelvos stood at the center of the Galactic Cooperative's diplomatic corps, his tall, spindly frame radiating fury. The insectoid ambassador's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Behind him stood 6 more diplomats from various cooperative species, all looking equally angry. Security personnel in cooperative uniforms flanked them, hands resting near their weapons. Captain Brooks. Krelvatha's translator made his voice harsh and clipped. You are in violation of Quarantine Protocol 7, subsection 12, paragraph 4. You have illegally transported cooperative citizens into restricted space. You have exposed them to a quarantined species without authorization. You have violated the Treaty of Sirius Station. I demand the immediate return of the Luminous Harmony's crew and formal charges to be filed against you and your entire command staff. The diplomatic hall fell silent. Every eye turned to Captain Rachel Brooks. She stood flanked by Commander Jake Mitchell and Lieutenant Diana Foster. Her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp. She'd clearly been expecting this. Ambassador Krelvath, Rachel said, her voice perfectly calm and professional. The UNSC Indomitable responded to a lawful distress call broadcast on multiple frequencies, including frequency 7 prime. We conducted a rescue operation in accordance with United Nations Space Command regulations and interstellar maritime law. The crew of the Luminous Harmony will be returned to cooperative custody once they have received full medical clearance and completed standard quarantine protocols. They sent the distress call by accident. Krelvatha's mandibles clacked furiously. They did not knowingly request aid from a restricted species. The call was sent. We responded. The law is clear on this matter. Rachel pulled out a tablet and displayed the relevant codes. Article 15 of the Interstellar Rescue Convention states that any vessel receiving a distress call is obligated to render aid regardless of political boundaries, species restrictions, or diplomatic complications. Would you prefer we had left them to die? The ambassador's translator emitted what might have been a growl. You could have notified cooperative authorities and waited for our rescue vessels. Your nearest station was 6 days away. Their life support would have failed in 3. Again, I ask you, Ambassador, would you have preferred we let them die while waiting for permission to save them? The question hung in the air like a blade. Krelvath had no good answer, and everyone in the room knew it. If he said yes, he admitted the cooperative would sacrifice citizens to maintain quarantine. If he said no, he admitted the humans had done the right thing. But the real explosion was happening behind the scenes, in the digital networks that connected the galaxy. Velther had filed their report immediately upon arriving at the station. So had Captain Shelvith. So had every single member of the Luminous Harmony's crew. Detailed logs, video recordings, sensor data, personal testimonies. Everything. They'd sent it all to cooperative authorities, as required. But they'd also sent it to the galactic news networks, to scientific institutions, to anyone who would listen. The story spread like wildfire across 1,000 worlds. Velther's scientific observations were the most damning. Detailed analysis of human physiology, their casual handling of lethal environments, their ability to work in conditions no other species could survive. But more than that, Velther had documented their behavior, the rescue protocols, the treatment of the alien crew, the decision to save the pirates who'd attacked them. Every action carefully recorded and analyzed. Within hours, the reports had been downloaded billions of times. News agencies across cooperative space were running the story as their lead. Quarantined Deathworlders save cooperative ship. Humans risk lives for alien rescue. The species we fear built safety net we ignored. Public opinion was shifting. Fast. On the station, in private meeting rooms, the real negotiations began. Rachel met with cooperative officials. She brought documentation. Lots of documentation. Records of every rescue operation human vessels had conducted in the past decade. Logs showing how many cooperative citizens had been saved by human intervention. Data proving that humanity had been quietly patrolling the most dangerous regions of space, the places cooperative had deemed too risky to maintain regular patrols. We didn't ask for your help, one cooperative official said stiffly. You didn't have to, Commander Jake Mitchell replied. People were dying out there. Ships were getting lost, stranded, destroyed. We had the capability to help, so we did. That's what decent beings do. The official had no response to that. In the public forums, The debate raged. Some cooperative species demanded the quarantine be maintained. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. But others pointed to the evidence. If humans were so dangerous, why had they saved their enemies? Why had they built a rescue fleet instead of a war fleet? Why did they risk their lives for strangers from species who wanted nothing to do with them? Captain Shelvett gave an interview that was broadcast across the galactic network. The old insectoid captain spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. I was afraid when I learned we had called humans. The database said they were monsters from a death world. But monsters don't build medical bays for injured aliens. Monsters don't risk their lives to save pirates who just attacked them. Monsters don't spend 3 days making sure your crew is comfortable and safe. He paused, his compound eyes reflecting the camera lights. We quarantined humanity because we were afraid of what they could do to us. But perhaps we should have been asking what they could do for us. These Deathworlders chose to be guardians. Maybe it's time we let them. The interview went viral. It was shared, discussed, debated in every corner cooperative space. Opinion polls showed a dramatic shift. 70% of cooperative citizens now supported opening diplomatic relations with Earth. 85% believed the quarantine should be lifted. 3 weeks after the Indomitable docked at Armstrong Station, the Galactic Cooperative Council convened for an emergency session. The vote was close, but it passed. The quarantine on Earth would be lifted. Diplomatic relations would be established. Humanity would be invited to join the Galactic Cooperative as a full member species. There were conditions, of course, probationary periods, cultural exchange programs, joint operations to ease the transition. But the door was open. After decades of isolation, humanity was no longer alone. Velther stood in the observation deck of Armstrong Station one last time before heading home. Earth rotated below, that beautiful, deadly blue marble. A human technician named Danny worked nearby, calibrating some equipment. "Thank you," Velther said quietly. Danny looked up confused. "For what?" "For answering our call. For saving us. For showing the galaxy that Deathworlders can be heroes." The young human smiled and shrugged. "We just did what anyone should do. You needed help. We helped. That's not heroism. That's just basic decency." Velther watched him go back to work and made a final entry in their log. Perhaps the real lesson isn't about how dangerous Earth is. Perhaps it's about how that danger forged a species that refuses to let others suffer alone. We called them monsters and found guardians. We feared their strength and discovered their compassion. The galaxy tried to isolate humanity to protect ourselves. Instead, we denied ourselves the protection humanity could provide. That was the real mistake. And today, we finally corrected it. The log entry ended there, but the story was just beginning. Humanity had come home to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.